Okay, welcome to a bit of a special edition really of the old geography revision videos that we've been creating in preparation for your exams. If you're watching this, it probably means you've just got 2 days to go until you sit your actual terminal paper. So this is one of two videos that's going to deal with question technique. Okay, it might be quite a long one, so feel free to obviously take breaks by pausing, maybe have a go at some questions yourself. I can't obviously cover everything, and I can't second guess what might be on the paper, but what I can do is give you some pointers for how to achieve top marks on your case study answers. Okay. I'm just looking for a pen. That's what I'm looking for. There is one in this basket. So, let's begin like this then. In the front of your case study booklets, hopefully you've got this. I'm quite happy to email it out, and at various points in this video I'm going to ask you to check your emails, because I will email this PowerPoint out, and then obviously you can get hold of the model answers, or they're there also in your case study booklet, but you can also get hold of the guidance and therefore use it as part of your final revision. So you've got your case study grid, and the whole point of making this case study grid was obviously to give you an idea of what case study worked best. And remember your 3 units that you're being examined on are natural hazards, population, settlement and rivers and coasts, and you will also be aware of making sure you've got an LEDC tectonic hazard, an MEDC tectonic hazard, an LEDC climatic and an MEDC climatic. So not necessarily having to know all 8, but actually picking your best 4, but making sure that you've got 2 climatic, MEDC and LEDC, 2 tectonic, MEDC and LEDC. Population settlement is there, and rivers and coasts is there. So that's for you to look at. Feel free to obviously pause at this point, get your case study grid out, get it in front of you if you think that will be useful. So, in terms of themes, okay, again, this is based on what has gone before. Though the question may change this year, it depends on how they want to word it. But the themes of natural hazards are questions that ask you about causes and effects, why a natural hazard occurs, the physical processes, and then what the effects are on people and property, or communities is another way to put it. Responding to the hazard, so before, during and after, and obviously the trick there when it's after is it an MEDC, and therefore how can it respond? Is it an LEDC like Haiti, for example, or like the Philippines? Why would that make it difficult to respond? Successive responses to hazard. Mount Etna is a very good one to use there, because obviously the methods that they used meant that obviously nobody died in the 2002 eruption, but also there was very minimal damage by, I suppose, natural hazard standards really. And then how sustainable are response methods, and that's one of the questions that we're going to look at as part of this video. So they're the themes for your natural hazard case study questions. In terms of rivers and coasts, if it's flooding, obviously causes and effects of flooding is quite a common one. Boscastle and Bangladesh would be your 2 to choose from. Responses, so the success, the methods that they used, how successful they were, and also how sustainable. Again, one of our model answers, your model answer that's in your case study booklet is 1-4, how sustainable the methods are. And then coastal protection, usually what methods have been used and how sustainable are they, hard engineering, soft engineering. And then landform creation as well, so perhaps talking about the River Tees and looking at high force waterfall, or looking at Flamborough Head and looking at the formation of caves, arches, stacks and stumps, headlands and bays, etc. And finally then, population settlement, cause and effects of migration, so why people leave countries, why they migrate to other countries, the effects on the host country, the effect on the losing country. Poland and the UK obviously is the one to go for. Cause and effects, success of population management, one-child policy in China. Urban redevelopment, reasons and change to location, why urban redevelopment has happened, think of Sheffield, and then the changes that have occurred, so giving specific place detail of areas that have been redeveloped. Changes to shopping patterns is obviously Sheffield and Meadowhall. Again, it's reasons why that's happened. Features of the new shopping trends, how sustainable they are, and then finally sustainable settlements. Okay, so these are the themes of your questions, and you'll see how these themes are then tested as we go through. So let's have a look at this, okay? Here's our first one, an example of a tectonic hazard event in an MEDC. Name the MEDC and state the tectonic hazard event. So, key thing, it's tectonic. Okay, let's underline that word. If you put a tropical storm, or if you put drought, you ain't getting any marks, I'm afraid. Okay, no marks at all, because it's asking for a tectonic. If you write an LEDC when it's asked for an MEDC, you you can still achieve 4 out of 9, 5 out of 9 depending on how good your answer is, okay? But obviously it's best to get the right one. So if it's tectonic hazard event and it's an MEDC, then it's got to be Italy. And you've got two choices. You can do the L'Aquila earthquake or you can do the Mount Etna eruption. My personal preference for a question such as this is Mount Etna, okay? There's two parts to it. Explain the natural processes which cause a tectonic hazard and describe how people were able to reduce the impact, okay? So this isn't going to give you a complete answer, okay, but it will give you some pointers. First of all, you need to say that Etna sits on a destructive plate margin, and that plate margin is where the African and Eurasian plates, African and Eurasian plates meet. First thing you've got if you do that is specific place detail, okay? Now you're setting up an answer that's going to push you into the top of level 2, certainly into level 3, 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9, 9 out of 9, because you're talking about an actual location, okay? Then obviously you need to talk about reducing the causes, okay? So you need to say what happens. Acid destructive plate margin, the oceanic Eurasian plate is forced underneath the African plate, a process called subduction, showing a bit more in-depth knowledge. When this happens, the crust melts due to pressure, friction and heat below the Earth's surface, and then what happens next? That increases magma levels, and so it gets pushed up. So basically, you've got your general destructive margin theory, but by putting in the fact that the Eurasian plate is like oceanic, or the African plate is continental, okay, then you're on to a winner because that's specific place detail. Then it is this bottom bit, and I've got one example of how to do it, because you've got to say how people were able to reduce the impact, okay? So what did they do and how did that reduce the impact? So one example would be, one method the Italian authorities used was to evacuate nearby towns such as Lingualosa. So let's put an R there. That's our reason, all right? Or that's our point that we're making, okay? Then over 1,000 people were evacuated and schools were closed, okay? Well, we've got 2 points of specific place detail, one for mentioning Lingualosa, and then one for mentioning over 1,000 were evacuated. And in italic down here, okay, this is saying why they did that. This is saying how it reduced the impact, okay? So the people were evacuated, the schools were closed to reduce the risk of death or injury by removing people from the danger zone. If we just put, and you'll see this as we go through the video, okay, and on the PowerPoint, if you obviously pause it and get it up on your emails and you can flick it in and out, okay, then put the initials DEV for development, okay? Because what you've done there is you've given specific place detail by mentioning Lingualosa, by giving a statistic of 1,000. You have given a clear idea of how people reduce the impact of the hazard by evacuating people and closing the schools, and then you've said how that reduced the impact, okay? And that reduced the impact by reducing the risk of death or injury by removing people from the danger zone. So this first example is how, how your explanation lifts you, because basically a clear description, a clear explanation of how the Etna eruption happened, okay, that's going to push you through level 1 into level 2 into level 3. Okay, let's say you only wrote that, you'd probably be on 3, 4 out of 9, okay? But so long as you've got 3 ideas, says there, look, 3 developed ideas, okay? And I would always say that your 3 developed ideas come from explaining the methods used to reduce the impact. So long as you've got 3 like that, okay, financial assistance, 5.6 billion euros or billion pounds, whatever it was, check your case study booklet, okay, to get the specific place detail. So that's our first example, highlighting what you're being asked to do, and then highlighting obviously what we need to put in for explaining the process. That really is the level of detail. The bigger bulk of your answer comes from talking about the effects usually, or the methods used to reduce the impact, okay? Here's another one, an example of a climatic hazard, okay? So this time, we've got, describe the methods used to protect people and property. So we're looking for methods used to protect people and property from the climatic hazard, and how sustainable these methods are, okay? So we need to know 2 things. First of all, we don't need to know this entire list. Please don't think you need to know this entire list, because again, we've got 3 developed ideas. So we maybe need 3 to 4 examples, okay? And then we're going to get our marks, we're going to push through into level 2, level 3, 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9, 9 out of 9, by making sure that we mention 3 to 4 ideas. So, describe the methods used to protect people and property. Okay, well, farmers given loans at low interest rates to help recover from the droughts. Okay, you need to say how that helps them really, and then again, drought-tolerant crops introduced which can grow in dry conditions. So therefore, you know, as the drought was ongoing, giving farmers the ability to continue to grow crops, to continue to make money, so they don't lose their livelihoods. Okay. So we've got that, and also in terms of saying how sustainable they are, it's then being able to say, is that or is that not sustainable? Okay, so for example, hotlines offer an advice on saving water in the home. That's sustainable. That's cheap, that's relatively easy to do, that's easy to manage, and it's easy to keep on doing again and again and again. Okay, people can ring up, cost them very little, they get advice and they act on that advice. Okay, that would be a sustainable method. Water restrictions introduced for homeowners to avoid waste. That's a sustainable method. Okay, because you can keep on doing that every single time there was a drought. Things like £10 billion Australian dollars invested in the National Plan for Water Security, etc., etc., and the Melbourne Desalination Plant. Well, that's less sustainable because, you know, it would cost an awful lot of money to continue to invest $10 billion every time you wanted to improve water management. Okay, so it's about being able to say they were the methods used and how they protected people, how they helped people and protected property. Okay, and then is it or is it not sustainable? That's going to work really well. The Australia Big Dry, so it was named the MEDC and state the type of climatic hazard. Okay, so up there, our MEDC is Australia, our type of climatic hazard is drought. Then we talk about the methods used to protect people and property. Then we talk about how sustainable they are. Or rather, each time we mention a method, say how sustainable it is. Okay? So that's another quick example. A final hazard one. Name and locate an example of a climatic hazard in an MEDC. I'm just going to be cheeky here. I'm just going to change that to an LEDC just for the purpose of this example. Okay? But again, describe the climatic conditions and explain the impacts of the hazard. This is your favourite. You want this. You keep your fingers crossed questions like this because it's a nice, simple cause and effect. Okay? So describe the climatic conditions. Alright, again, what you're looking for here is general tropical storm formation, but with specific place detail, okay? So things like the Western Pacific Ocean, things like, you know, sea temperatures of 27 degrees, okay? Things like the fact that there's no land before the Philippines to slow the tropical storm down means that, you know, that's only specific to Typhoon Haiyan, basically, okay? Tropical storm Haiyan. So then, once you've got your key points that are needed for a tropical storm to form, then you can start talking about the impacts, okay? And the key thing here is being able to expand the points. So the first two are quite straightforward. Again, look, specific place detail, 6,300 people died, 28,689 people injured, okay? Most of the deaths were from drowning or collapsed buildings. That's a nice start. These bottom three here, you're then able to develop the ideas further because you're able to say, okay, the impact of the hazard was that major roads were blocked by trees and impassable. This meant it was difficult to carry out rescue operations and distribute aid. We could even take that further and say which increased the death toll further. Housing in Tacloban have been flattened by the massive storm surge that accompanied the typhoon. Again, Tacloban, specific place detail. This led to homelessness and people exposed to severe weather. Okay, so that's the impact, and then that's how I've expanded it. Hospitals in the city were either shut down or working at partial capacity, leaving many of the nearly 2,000 injured in the city without medical assistance. Okay, again, you can talk about how that increases the death toll. Okay, so you've got that there. This final hazard case study is the idea that you know, you talk about the causes, but when you talk about the effects, it is a case of developing. Giving the stats is fine, so long as once you get past deaths and injuries, you're then talking about the impact of damages to transport. What problems does that cause? Okay, that's what works well here. Okay, I'm just going to flick the back light on, just one moment. Okay, so if we move a stage further then and just start maybe increasing the speed at which we go through them. Okay, here's a model answer. You've got this in your case study booklet again, just to highlight this idea using river flooding this time. So the question up there, it's a bit small to see, but it's describe how the flooding is managed. What they do to try and reduce, or what have they done since to try and reduce it, and explain how stable these methods are, okay? So again, we need our specific place detail. We're talking about the River Valency, okay, running through the village of Boscastle. The village was flooded in 2004, okay. We're not talking about the event, okay. We're not going to talk about, we don't need to mention that, you know, there was only one broken thumb, right. What we need to know is what methods have been put in place since, okay. And again, it's asking you how it's managed, so how the method works and how sustainable it is, okay.